Okay, so the final bits that we're going over on this are the synths, the strings, and then there's a couple of impact sounds that I've used on here just to give it a little bit more edge. We only used them quite sparingly in this. Sometimes in songs we do like to use them quite a lot, like a lot of reverse cymbals, a lot of reverse snares, just to give it an extra bit of gusto. But we didn't really think they were needed too much for that. Now, I'm not really doing a huge amount, really, because a lot of these sounds were already sent sort of pre-done by Liam. So it was just my job to sort of just tidy them up a little bit. There's a fair bit going on in terms of sort of ambient noises in this, for an example. So what he's done there is he's just added on a glitch effect to one of the ambient guitar sounds. Sounds quite cool, quite robotic in the overall mix, which I thought was pretty darn cool. They're all bussed together individually. I'm just doing small things. I added a little ping pong effect to that one just to pan it round a little bit, just a tiny bit. It's not hugely obvious really listening to it. On this one I added a little bit of EQ just to take the low end out because it was quite muddy in the low end. So just tidying things up. Really subtle changes. Bussed together, I'm adding this bus comp here, driving the threshold quite a bit, adding a little bit of makeup gain. The attack is set quite far back just because it's all this is doing really. It's not hugely obvious, but it's just for wider impacting sounds like the piano chords here. Just taming things down a tiny little bit. As you can see, it's doing very small amount. You know, it's not hugely obvious really. Other than that, adding in a little bit more high end, sort of around the 5K mark there, just to brighten the sound up again, just cutting off a little bit of the low end there. And then again I'm using this multiband, same reason as I was using it for the guitars, basically just to avoid any muddiness but without having to completely take it out. So it's just sort of ducking the low end a little bit in certain spaces. But again, this is very sparingly done. It's just very subtle. Very subtle. You can kind of hear a little bit the difference in the high end there as well. It's sort of poking out quite nicely, those whooshy sounds. But as I say, done very sparingly, just deliberately, just to smarten things up. So that's all I'm doing there on the synths, keeping it simple, keeping it real. The string bus, again, I'm not really being overly processing in things. I'm just keeping it just a little bit of EQ. The main thing that I did with this, as you can see, is I just put a bump up at around the sort of 8K mark there, just because I wanted the strings to sit fairly comfortably back in the mix, but also still have that presence, not lose any brightness to them. And you can kind of hear that if I take it out. You can really hear it in those longer held chords there. Really subtle, just enough. Taking that low end there as well out really helped to sort of keep it really nice and clean. Other than that, like I said, the only other thing that I've got in here is some impact sounds. Now again, I processed these before. These are sort of like a stock one that I've got on hand now that I bounced out previously in a previous session. I don't think it was even for this song. I think it was for could have even been for Inhibitor, if I'm thinking of the right sound. So that's all that's going on there. It's just a tiny little effect there, but in the overall sound, it does kind of help bring things out a little bit. That's all it's doing. See, nothing ridiculous. And we did also have this little number here, which again was a bunch of sounds that I put together just to really just mess around and make it kind of goofy. But thought it sounded pretty cool. I can't even remember if we actually ended up using that in the end or not. But can't deny that it sounds pretty cool just in there. Kind of hear those strings coming in on that end sort of section there, which sounds just like I said, sparingly in the background. It just brings that extra little bit of body and a little bit extra just in the background, and then it doesn't need to be anything huge or anything like that. I mean, I know quite a lot of the time in a lot of our songs we will go quite silly with loads of squiggly wiggly soundy synths that are kind of goofy but have almost become sort of a signature sound, but here they weren't really needed. There's a few things going on with the synths and the ambient glitchy sounds, but they are only really there to reinforce what's already going on, just to give it some depth, just something else, something a bit different. Now, I don't know if you can tell there with that panning effect. It is a really cool sort of extra level. And then the reverse sounds. And then skipping forward to that, the big impact sound again, just because it's great. this is kind of like the main big synth driving throughout this, which is why I added that high end into it, because of that beautiful sort of washy sound there. Sounded so cool. Ah, yes. That was actually one thing there that I forgot. Yes. So at the end there, that sudden EQ pass, I added that in as sort of an afterthought because Liam wasn't happy with the way that the song ended. Well, it's just he wanted something else added to it, something just to give it a definitive sort of ending. And I was just kind of thinking, just going, oh, I don't flipping know. And I was just messing around. And I came up with this idea, which was just to really, really scoop up, add a massive notch to it, so it gave that sort of kind of mechanical sound driving down. But that's essentially all that's doing there. It's just an EQ there, passing all the way down, just cutting off at the end. I'll just show you that there. Kind of completes that whole mechanical, computerized sound that are driving the synths in this song in particular. It was just really cool. It's a really cool thing. It was just added as an afterthought, and we kept it in, and was what I thought was a cool ending. A lot of these sort of synthy sounds, the guitar ones as well, kind of date back to when we were doing Stages to Osiris almost. The opening in Denial, a lot of those similar sort of heavily reverbed guitar sounds, which he recorded on, I think it was a Zoom pedal that he had. I think he's still got. He had that for years and was using it quite a lot, if I'm not mistaken, on other projects that we'd done, other songs that we'd done even after that, just because he really liked the tone that he got out of it for that. And again, it kind of just sounds, a little bit goofy, but that's kind of what we were going for. We didn't want to take things too seriously, and we wanted to just add what we wanted to add to make the song the best it could possibly be, and that's what we always try and do. It's what I always try and strive to do. I really like, especially in this section, just because this bit always reminds me of a sort of Dream Theater-esque section, but I love the strings in this, just stabbing at everything. It just sounds really good. And there we go. That's essentially it. That's all the sort of processing that I did to this particular track, really. And then we got it mastered by a friend of mine, Joe Cooper, who's done some smashing work for us. We're probably going to revisit this one at some point in the future, just to maybe make a few adjustments, because why not? But that's essentially all that I did to this. Kept it simple, there wasn't a, like I said, there wasn't a huge amount needed to change, just because everything was already pretty well recorded and pretty well in check. So there we go. That's Mind Over Man.